welcome everybody. It's nice to have you here. I'm Louise and I'm the Twinkl Geography Content Lead, and I work with a wonderful team of geography lovers who love geography learning, and they have teaching experience across Key Stage 1 and 2 in a range of settings, and we just love to help those who teach geography. So hopefully this will help you with teaching geography today.
Thanks, Louise. So hi, I'm Kat Oakes. I'm the Twinkl Sustainability Lead. Sort of similar to Louise, I lead a very passionate team, all focused on sustainability. And I bring with me secondary geography experience, so I love geography. And I'm a former local government environmental and regeneration officer as well.
So today's session, we're going to start off with some key updates from the geography team. Then we're going to think about why sustainability is important and sustainability's place in the curriculum. Just a note there, as I'm aware, we have international attendees, that we are going to be focusing particularly on the English curriculum there. And then we're going to be looking at key research around sustainability, how sustainability can be embedded in practice, how Twinkl can support with sustainability education, and how Geo Wonderers can support sustainability in geography as well, and finishing off with our favourite sustainability activities from the geography team. So first of all, some updates from the geography team. So our main update is about Geo Wonderers. So Geo Wonderers is our brand new progressive adaptable geography scheme for Key Stage 1 and 2. We currently have 15 units on site, and the remaining units are almost complete now, so it will all be ready to teach from in September. But most of the units are ready to teach from now, so keep an eye out for the next units, which are climate zones and biomes, which should be in the next couple of weeks, and then trade and economic activity and contrasting places in Kenya, which are coming in July. We'd also love for teachers to test or give their opinions on the units, so please do indicate on the feedback form if you'd be happy for me to contact you by email. So just to update you on Geo Wonderers, so our newest units, we've got Key Stage 1 Weather Explorers. So this is a unit that explores UK weather and the locations of hot and cold places of the world in relation to the equator and the poles. It also includes looking at seasons, how weather is different around the world, and the effect of weather on humans and how we adapt to it. We've also just uploaded Lower Key Stage 2 unit, Regional Study and European Comparison, which focuses on the Sicily region. And children learn about Europe and Sicily, comparing it with their local region in terms of land use, climate and life in those areas. We've also uploaded 2 Upper Key Stage 2 units, Distribution of Natural Resources. So this unit explores a range of natural resources and where they're found. It covers the challenges related to the use of resources, focusing on energy, minerals, metal and wood, whilst also exploring the impact of human action on resource sustainability. And we've also uploaded Fieldwork Inquiry, Food Distribution and Climate. So in this unit, children will discover where our food comes from, how food supply is affected by climate change, and how the global food economy has impacts upon sustainability. Children also plan a Fieldwork Inquiry in this unit, investigating the effect of food distribution on climate change and examine how they can make sustainable choices. And then just to share with you the units that we've now got on site, we've got Around Our Locality, the United Kingdom, Weather Explorers, Continents and Oceans, and Fieldwork Inquiry Seasides. Around Our Locality is very much a local area unit. United Kingdom looks particularly at the countries and capital cities of the UK. Weather Explorers, I've already talked about. Continents and Oceans is very much about helping them learn about where they are and what they're like for the continents and oceans. And Fieldwork Inquiry Seasides explores features of seasides, looks at some UK seasides, but also some further afield, particularly preparing for the next unit on contrasting places in Kenya. And also children plan a Fieldwork Inquiry around litter, either at a local seaside or in their local area. And then in Lower Key Stage 2, we've got local land use, volcanoes and earthquakes, the Regional Study and European Comparison. We've got settlements and rivers and the water cycle. So local land use is all about learning different land use types, using mapping skills to identify these, and planning fieldwork inquiry around how land is used locally. Volcanoes and earthquakes, we explore those natural hazards and their impacts. Regional Study and European Comparison I've spoken about. Settlements is again a fieldwork inquiry, again very much based on the local settlement, but this time looking more at those kind of qualitative skills, getting them to use questionnaires to help them find out more about their local settlement. And then rivers and the water cycle examines the water cycle and rivers in terms of the journey of a river, and also looking at things like flooding and pollution and what life is like near rivers. And then coming soon, we've got climate zones and biomes. And then in upper key stage 2, we have mountains, latitude, longitude and time zones, food distribution and climate, fieldwork inquiry, rivers and coasts, and distribution of natural resources. Mountains very much focuses on the features of mountains and how those mountains are formed, looking at different types. It also looks at tourism and the sustainability of tourism, and is also a North American comparison unit comparing the Rocky Mountains and Erie for those regions. Latitude, longitude and time zones, fairly self-explanatory, looks at how to use those, and also explains about the significance of those as well. Food distribution I've spoken about. Rivers and coast, again, is a fieldwork inquiry, this time very much based on water, so looking at the areas of pollution, coastal erosion, and sort of any other things that might be linked into those rivers and coast inquiries, and looks at things like erosion and deposition as well. And then distribution of natural resources I've already spoken about, and then coming really soon is our trade and economic activity unit as well. So that hopefully updates you on what we've got on there. But why would you choose Geo Wonderers? Well, it's fully progressive, so it's been carefully designed to ensure progression through topics, and we develop and build upon the concepts, knowledge and skills, so it works progressively through the units, but also from one unit to another. We've got embedded fieldwork and fieldwork units for each year group. It's also adaptable with fully editable plans and resources to adapt to student needs. It has an activity menu with 3 to 4 choices, giving teachers autonomy to choose their activities that suit their students. And it also has accessibility suggestions to help you adapt for additional needs. It's also rooted in retrieval practice and has built-in retrieval activities. It has assessment materials, including show what you know tasks and an assessment. It's streamlined, so each year group has 3 units of 6 lessons each. And there's lots of progression in place with that as well, revisiting and developing in-depth understanding of places across topics. There's also lots of supporting resources. We've got linked CPD, linked animations, linked songs, visual snapshot videos to discover places and processes, and full concept videos with engaging presenters exploring key ideas. So a lot there for Geo Wonderers. So hopefully after this, you'll go and check it out and take a little look. So let's move on to today's topic then. So why is sustainability important in geography? Well, a sense of place and connection within our surrounding environment is absolutely key to our geographical understanding, and it furthers children's development as thoughtful citizens. So by thinking more about their own surroundings, children can go on to think more broadly about the global impacts and also the positive changes that they can make. Feeling connected to environments around us is such an important part of geography, and developing that sense of place and care for the areas around us really does sort of develop us as those thoughtful citizens. Understanding sustainability and climate change also helps children to see that interconnectedness of different geographical concepts. So realising that humans impact environments and that we are in turn impacted by those changing environments is so key to that geographical understanding. And that cyclical nature of what we do impacting the environment and the changes in the environment having an impact on us is a hugely powerful way to see that. And climate change is so important to so many areas of geography, and that's why we've woven it through Geo Wonderers rather than have those standalone units.
Thanks, Louise. So this section is mine. So again, just continuing, why is sustainability important in geography? Eco-anxiety, unfortunately, is increasing in children. There's numerous studies and research that has taken place. In 2022, Save the Children's, which is a charity, they did a survey where they questioned 3,000 children, and 70% of those children expressed concerns about the world they will inherit. So that's quite concerning, and you know, we need to address and help with that. Additionally, more than half, so 57% of child and adolescent psychiatrists in England are also witnessing distress regarding the climate crisis and environmental conditions of the children that they see. So it's really, really important and crucial that there's an accurate understanding of the challenges and culminating an idea for action so that we can help children provide that action and feel empowered to make a difference. When these challenges are approached from an angle of either innovation and hope, children then feel that encouragement to make those positive choices of their own or in their school community. So just continuing on, green careers is a really crucial element of addressing these environmental challenges. If we want the children we teach to be prepared for further study and a changing world, developing that sustainability understanding is really essential. As is important is the behaviour change and inspiring the action to help shape a more sustainable future. Now, green careers involves roles that can contribute to preserving or restoring the environment. So this could be through typical industries like renewable energy, waste management and conservation, but we are now starting to see increasing areas of green skills being integrated into all types of roles which are being advertised. I might have flicked it on, sorry, Louise.
I think we both pressed the button at the same time then, no worries. So is sustainability part of the national curriculum? Well, the words sustainability or climate change don't actually come up at all in the current primary geography curriculum for England. And given how we've already demonstrated the importance, this is quite surprising, really. But we feel that we really struggle to teach much of the geography curriculum without including sustainability and climate change, because there would just be so much that we wouldn't be covering. So one of the phrases from the purpose of study states, as pupils progress, their growing knowledge about the world should help them deepen their understanding of the interaction between physical and human processes. And to deepen that understanding, we can't exclude sustainability, especially in today's ever-changing world. We need to be including sustainability and climate change to be able to understand that interaction between those processes. So Teach the Future are a company that have suggested a modified curriculum for the future that integrates sustainability and climate change across the existing curriculum. So they've looked at the purpose of study, and you'll see when I've got the examples on the screen here, any bold sections are the additions that Teach the Future have made to the existing curriculum. So they've got the purpose of study, a high quality geography education should inspire pupils' curiosity and fascination about the world and its people, cultivating a sense of compassion and agency that will remain with them for the rest of their lives. So compassion and agency is central to us as people, and it's important that we develop this through a worldview rather than a UK or Eurocentric one. However, we do also have to be careful to focus on what we can do and the impact that this can make on the world, and not let children feel that weight of responsibility, just like Kat's already spoken about eco-anxiety. They've also added that it should promote a deep understanding of the Earth's key physical and human processes and their impact on us and the impact of our actions on the world and how these impacts can be managed. Well, hopefully for our geography curriculums, we're already promoting a deep understanding of Earth's processes, but this can be tricky as a teacher when with climate, these are changing. And that added focus on the impact comes back to that interconnectedness and thinking about not only what we or they can do, but also what's being done on a larger scale so that they can see those changes that are happening. They've also added lots to the curriculum aims. So these statements have been added in full. So we've got develop a sense of place, beginning with their own locality, including exploring emotions and experiences connected to that place. And so that first aim shows, again, that importance of that connectedness with their community and environment, which doesn't just follow through geography, but also through many areas such as RE, PHSE and science. They've also got to understand that there are global inequalities in terms of power, access to resources, ecological footprints, and how people are impacted by weather, climate and climate change. And integrating global equalities into your curriculum can really develop an understanding of that, again, that interconnectedness, but between the human and physical geography. And that's a thread that does follow really strongly through Geo Wanderers, developing that understanding of this around water, food and other natural resources through our rivers and the water cycle, food distribution and climate, and both the distribution of natural resources and trade and economic activity units. They've also then got evaluate sources of evidence relating to human and physical geographical features and processes. Now, this third aim, I think, is really important because it's that being able to evaluate sources of evidence, and that's especially key relating to the amount of misinformation that there is out there around climate science, and for them being able to evaluate that and understand what is the truth and what is the science behind that. So that's a really important one, I think. So then we come on to the Key Stage 1 curriculum, and Teach the Future have suggested that children should understand and connect with their local area, developing an appreciation of its meaning to themselves and others. And you'll see at Key Stage 1 that they suggest quite a locally focused approach, looking understanding and connection with the local area and focusing on the local impacts such as seasons, waste and pollution. And you can see how these have been added to the key physical feature and human feature lists, making sure that it's focusing on seasons rather than just a single season, and thinking about how these change over time, and adding waste and pollution in as well. And then in Key Stage 2, we've got some extra statements like study and understand their local environment to develop a sense of their place and agency within it, and appreciate that places are changing, often unpredictably, and adapting to change. So they're suggesting that we continue to build on this local focus in Key Stage 2, but with more of a focus on their agency within it, giving lots of opportunity to focus on taking positive action. They also suggest that climate change should be specifically taught as a physical process, and linking this to how places are changing and adapting to change. And also suggest to focus on the disparity of natural resources and of the extraction of these on the environment. So lots of extra bits there that could be covered in the national curriculum. Again, this is just a suggestion from Teach the Future. It's not at the part of the actual national curriculum or part of the review, but it's a really good starting point to look at where you could start to embed these kind of things into your geography curriculum. And then for Key Stage 2, they've also got 2 other areas that they focus on, with connection and interaction between physical and human geography, and how this impacts environments and communities local and globally through, for example, climate change. But they also suggest really looking at that from a diverse perspective, thinking about local communities such as Indigenous communities and other ethnic backgrounds. And they particularly emphasise the global south there as well. So thinking about those people that maybe are being most impacted by climate change. And then they also have collaborative action projects stemming from local inquiries that they have conducted about issues that they've chosen to investigate. So that importance of working together and taking action. And again, that's a big part of our field work within Geo Wanderers as well. So moving on from that, we've also got the interim curriculum assessment review to look at. So recently, the government released the interim report into the curriculum and assessment review, and these quotes are taken from that. And they've said that the curriculum really needs to respond to social and technological change, that global and social environmental challenges require attention to scientific and cultural knowledge and skills so that we can equip young people to meet the challenges of the future. And they're also saying that their next steps in the interim review is going to be continuing to consider how best to equip children and young people with the essential knowledge and skills which will enable them to adapt and thrive in this rapidly changing world. And also rapid social, environmental and technological change necessitates that the curriculum keeps pace, including a greater focus on sustainability and climate change. So we can see from that it's looking like the curriculum review will introduce more focus on sustainability and climate science. It's not yet clear which subjects this will feature in, but as we've already discussed, it's almost impossible to teach elements of the geography curriculum without bringing this in. And we're really hoping that it will feature across the curriculum as a leading thread. And the full curriculum review is due in autumn 2025. And the government have said that this will be implemented in a phased way to avoid destabilisation as well. So we're, just like you, waiting to see what's coming up there. And it highlights that the world is changing so quickly and how important that is in the curriculum to keep pace with those developments. And we will be looking into that as part of our Geo Wonderers curriculum. And once we've got the full curriculum review, we will have a look at our curriculum and see whether we need to build any further aspects in to make sure that we can support you with that as well.
Thanks, Louise. So in response to the curriculum and assessment review, the GA has also put some recommendations forward. So they've said that the Geography National Curriculum, GCSE and A-level courses should also encourage the study of relevant, recent and simultaneous geographical events at different scales, which mirrors what Louise has said previously. And geography's distinctive approach is central to developing young people's green skills. So that links to the green careers I mentioned. Also, their understanding of environmental sustainability and how climate change will transform not only our, but globally, the economy, society and environment, both locally and globally across the world. So this work can start as early as EYFS and is developed further in the primary geography classroom as well. Studying geography specifically addresses the situation where 6 in 10 school leavers are concerned about climate change, and a similar proportion believe that they will be impacted by it during their lifetime. And also, just to add, you know, some of those children who are concerned are perhaps feeling those impacts in the areas that they're located. Perhaps they've experienced flooding events. We've recently gone through a heat wave. So there's these impacts that we're all facing together. So they've also put through these other recommendations, and they said that the review should strengthen the place of climate change, sustainability and green skills. These should be really made explicit so that the revised geography curriculum includes direct references to climate change at Key Stage 2. And also the revised geography national curriculum should make explicit reference to subjects' contribution to develop those green skills ready for future green careers. And they also suggest revise and reduce the existing content, because how on earth is it going to be fitting if we don't reduce, you know, what's in an already extremely squeezed curriculum? So this interim review has indicated they are looking at areas which they're going to be reviewing, and hopefully we'll get more clarity later in the autumn. So in addition to the GA's response, the Royal Meteorological Society, who are the leading learned society for weather and climate in the UK, have recently, in the last month and a half or so, released a curriculum for climate literacy. So this is supporting what Louise said previously, where it's really, really crucial to ensure that we're teaching our children, our learners, the correct climate information in an accurate way, not to promote any misinformation or extra worry, which leads to eco-anxiety. So they have suggested it supports the need for a multidisciplinary approach, and they want it to be well sequenced and progressive, so that it's not a tokenistic odd unit put here and there. They want it sort of running throughout. They've also mentioned not only with the teaching, but the importance of CPD for teachers. So making sure that's in a flexible way, and there's an ability to adapt that information, because climate change is changing all the time, and that science is also changing. So we need to make sure that is keeping pace, and it's also keeping emphasised with the recent data and knowledge that's released. It stresses the importance of critical thinking and states that this is a curriculum of hope, but also focused as much as possible on the actions. Now, Louise and I have mentioned that quite a lot previously, about actions, about what children can do to help, but not feeling the pressure on themselves. So it's important that they're feeling part of the solution, but then that's preparing them with the skills, the knowledge that they may need for future green careers. So in geography specifically, climate change should be integrated throughout the curriculum. Now, Louise has alluded to that with all her units where climate change is threaded throughout. So that's developing an understanding of the interconnectedness of people and their environments across scales, systems and thinking. This is also for human and physical geography. So this could be looking at topics such as conflicts, urbanisation, food security across the world, water security, globalization, tourism, and migration. So we need a geographically literate society to help address a warming climate and decide where to build these new houses, for example, or tackle inequality at home and abroad. How do we live sustainability? Can't say that word. How can we live sustainably and promote biodiversity and safeguard Britain's place in an uncertain world? But also, it's not just Britain's place in an uncertain world, it's every single country's place in an uncertain world. So how are we dealing with this locally, but also globally? So they also say that it's in their geography lessons where pupils can understand why their school, their home, or maybe their community faces the risk of flooding or extreme heat. So what could be done to help to adapt to or mitigate in these situations? It's also worth saying, which isn't on the slides here, that a lot of the time there's information which is shared by media, online, news outlets. So children are seeing these, heat wave events which are happening across the world, increasing climatic events. So, then they're being exposed to global situations. The key skills in geography include observation, critical thinking about the concepts and information students are being presented with, as well as applying data and numeracy skills, so those that are introduced in maths. And nature-based learning and geographical fieldwork are really crucial to developing an appreciation of understanding the interconnectedness of our natural world and also people's interaction within it. So as we've sort of previously said, sustainability doesn't have to just come into geography and science, which are the sort of typical subjects where it's included in. However, it can be included across the curriculum. So some examples, and we've got some further resources later on in this presentation, could be by creating an upcycled art project in art and design where they're learning about waste and recycling, or designing new garments from a second-hand clothes perspective in design and technology. So this could link to trade and the clothing industry, specifically fast fashion. So the eco-anxiety stats previously that alluded that children and young people are worried about climate change. They also are really important and they're really intrigued about what they want to know more about. And the Sustainability and Climate Change Strategy, which was released April 2023, has stated various aims they're hoping to achieve. Now, I do believe it's going to be going through a bit of a review and an update. So that'll be interesting to see how far they've come and what other areas they might add into it. So our Department for Education for England and the education sector have a joint responsibility for preparing our children and young people for these challenges and opportunities that they will face. So it's making sure they're given the appropriate knowledge, skills, and also pastoral care to deal with an uncertain world. The DfE states that green jobs will not be niche, and they anticipate that sustainability and climate change will touch every career. So, it might even be an engineer might have an element of sustainability within their career role, not a typical renewable energy job, for example. Now, within the strategy as well, they focus on what can be done to the physical settings and buildings of educational buildings in the UK. So there is a big focus on climate adaptation and decarbonisation in these education and care buildings. So these can actually provide really core learning opportunities. So young people and children who go to school in those settings can help get involved in some of these areas. So it might be that they get involved in the adaptation measures or come up with a project on what could help with this. They could actually be learning in a net zero building or one that is adapted to reducing its carbon emissions. And they could also explore energy and water use and look at that data, how that could be used to reduce those figures. So actually using the area and the school setting that they're in, those young people, children, are seeing sustainability brought to life in front of them in the buildings that they learn in. So they're gaining those experiences which will enhance and contextualize their learning. In addition, on the strategy, which I do go into a little bit further, the National Education Nature Park is a programme which is attached to the strategy, and this is all about the biodiversity of school settings, and that aims to connect young people with nature and involves them in biodiversity monitoring and action, and uses real data to support the climate action plans that education settings need to have in place by the end of this year. So that brings me on to my next point. So by 2025, all education settings, so that's including early years all the way through to higher education, need to have put in place a sustainability lead. Now, this sustainability lead, could be anyone in the school, but typically it might be identifying someone who has responsibility for geography or science, and perhaps they lead those areas. It could even be a governor. It's obviously dependent on what the school wants to do. That lead needs to have the support of staff around them, the senior leadership team, the school business manager, the site manager, catering staff. Everyone has to be involved, and their job is to put in place a climate action plan. So what aims are they going to try and achieve to help to reduce their settings carbon emissions, but also thinking about integrating climate education into their curriculums. Now, it does say in the strategy, and we do have to remember that this strategy was written in a Conservative government. We're now in a Labour government, so we have changed a policy here. So by 2023, we will start rolling out carbon literacy training for at least one person in every local education setting. Now, I've not seen yet any full evidence of that. It's recommended at the moment, but so far it's not been fully implemented. Carbon literacy learning is something I will go into a little bit later, but we do also provide an accredited carbon literacy course which can help to upskill your knowledge. The ultimate aim in the strategy, so looking at 2020-30 into the future, is that education settings will be supporting a circular economy. So this might be participating in the Climate Leaders Award, the Education Nature Park, which I mentioned previously. So for example, it might be using the food waste at the school, producing compost, so letting that rot down, and then that could be reused either in the local community on allotments, or even in the school's own garden to grow the next set of vegetables or bee-friendly plants and things like that. Back to Louise.
Thanks, Kat. So just to sum up then, because that's a lot we've gone through there. So just to sum up some of the key messages from the research. So there's a lot of evidence that sustainability is likely to make up a large part of the changes to the national curriculum. However, we don't know what form or which subjects that's likely to be part of yet. But despite this, there's evidence from a range of sources. We've seen lots of different curriculums there and reports that sustainability is a key part of geography and should feature across the curriculum. And there's no reason to not start including these elements in our curriculums now to keep pace with environmental and societal change. Eco-anxiety, we've also seen, is a real challenge for many young people, and so it's important to approach learning from a hopeful, solution-focused angle that includes taking action. We've also seen that green skills are likely to be needed in most careers in the future, and that education plays a part in introducing children to these skills, and that settings need to have an appointed sustainability lead by 2025 and have in place a climate action plan. And we're still hoping that carbon literacy training will be available to support this. So what will you take away from the research? If there's something that's resonated with you, please do drop it into the chat so we can see what that's made you think. For me, I think the main thing I'll take away from the research would be the figures on eco-anxiety. They really stand out to me in terms of how many children are worrying about that, and the importance of delivering the content in a way that is going to be hopeful and innovative and focusing on that positive action and solutions. I think that's really, really important. So that will be the main thing that I think I would take away from the research this time. So now we're going to think more about how we can actually embed sustainability principles through our geography curriculums. So firstly, just like we said about being climate lead, it's important to recognise that you can't address sustainability in your school just through geography alone. Development of this knowledge needs to encompass every subject, in particular geography, science and PHSE, and be driven across the whole school. Trying to drive this on your own as a geography lead, it's not going to work. You need the buy-in of everybody across your school. We also want to avoid tokenism by ensuring concepts are woven through our geography curriculums and by developing that knowledge progressively across subjects. It's also really important to consider where those functional site changes that Kat was talking about in terms of energy and recycling, for example, can be made to promote those sustainable behaviours so that children are seeing it in action. So from that, you are one person or one subject, and you can't make a change like that across your whole school. And whilst there will always be a place for that standalone content, I always believe that integrating it into the real world, whether that be your school building through real world examples, that's how we bring geography to life, and that's how we make those connections. So that is so important. So I'm now going to go through a few examples of ways that you can do that. So one really good way is sustainability focused fieldwork. So fieldwork is a really great place to embed sustainability. What better time is there to promote care for the environment when you're actually out in it? Sustainability might be the main focus of your fieldwork, or it can often be meaningfully linked with other inquiries. So full fieldwork inquiries are a great way to complete the cycle by taking action as a result of the children's findings. So examples for that might include things like carrying out biodiversity studies and then sowing seeds or planting to improve wildlife, or investigating litter in your local area and then taking action to reduce it, or considering how eco-friendly your high street is, or investigating how sustainable food production is in your area. But having that focus on taking those actions, as we've talked about, can reduce the eco-anxiety, but also get them that buy-in to your local community. And it's also a great way of making sure that we are fulfilling that fieldwork cycle in geography and making sure that our results have actions and that there's a reason for doing our fieldwork. Another really great way is looking at places through a sustainable lens. So whether your place studies in your geography curriculum are separate and your geography is based around places, or whether they're integrated into your physical and human geography topics, there are so many opportunities where you can look through a sustainable lens at things. So this might mean looking at the impact of tourism in a particular place, or exploring how sustainable particular cities or housing are, or looking at issues related to a particular area, such as deforestation or pollution. So by looking at places through that sustainable lens, we're seeing it as one of many lenses that we're looking at places through, and it's giving children an opportunity to see what's happening in practice through real case studies. And the possibilities with this really are absolutely limitless, depending on the places that you're choosing to cover in your curriculum. Positive news is another really important one. Kat mentioned earlier about the sort of barrage of negative news that sometimes comes across, or even where it's not negative, just the negative feelings it might create in terms of eco-anxiety. So by focusing on positive news stories, we can help to reduce eco-anxiety and increase hope. Children can glean a great deal from learning about the successful actions that have already been taken, either by individuals, groups, or large corporations, and also by highlighting how these actions have already started to make a difference can be extremely beneficial as well. Success stories can help children to feel as though less pressure is on their own shoulders, and that the action for climate change is a shared responsibility between everyone, that it's not just about them having to do it, and emphasising what others are doing can really help with that. So we can also think about bringing sustainability into our physical and human geography. So various areas of the curriculum lend themselves to sustainability so well. So here are some ideas for different aspects. So for climate zones, we might learn about the impact of climate change on the different climate zones, for example, polar melting or desertification, and the impact in these places and elsewhere. We might also explore ways of living more sustainably in different zones and what's being done to help with that. We might also look at measures such as carbon footprint to guide behaviour change with a view to making a difference. We can also look at this in biomes and vegetation belts. So we might look at the importance of ecosystems within biomes such as rainforests in terms of biodiversity and climate and carbon regulation. But it can also be valuable to explore the positive action of and the impact on Indigenous communities. Indigenous communities can be really lovely examples of working with nature and using nature to support sustainability. So those can be really lovely positive stories to be able to share with children. And then rivers as well, we can focus on pollution, flooding and water management. And whilst those might seem like more sort of the negative aspects, it can also focus on the solutions, the things that are being put in place to manage those and the changes people are making. We might also investigate hydroelectric power and explore sustainable river restoration projects as well. In terms of volcanoes and earthquakes, whilst this area maybe lends itself a bit less to sustainability, one way you can bring it in is by exploring how sustainable practices can be used in the rebuilding of areas affected by natural hazards. Sometimes this can be really used as an opportunity to look at that. It also can provide a great opportunity to look at geothermal energy as well. The water cycle is another lovely topic to bring sustainability into. So you can focus on sustainable water management and water conservation. You might explore inequalities in access to water and what can be done about that. You might calculate your own water footprints or design water recycling systems to use around the school. In settlement, you might explore eco-settlements and how they reduce environmental impact, or you might look at designing a sustainable settlement, or find out about methods used in sustainable cities. For land use, you might map the sustainability of local land use, comparing green space with other types of land use, and investigate the potential impacts of land use changing over time. Trade and economic activity is such a great area to bring sustainability into. There are so many areas of it where you're able to do that. So you might look at the impacts of globalization on society and the environment. You might consider the carbon and water footprints of production and supply chains. You might explore the impacts of fast fashion and investigate possible alternatives. You could debate the impacts of globalization and trade and explore fair trade and ethical sourcing. And there's just so many possibilities with that, and it links so well as well with the topic of natural resources. They sort of go hand in hand together. So with distribution of natural resources, you can compare renewable and non-renewable energy and consider the importance of sustainable use. You might explore global inequalities in the distribution of resources and how this impacts people. You might make links to the supply chain of products and sustainability of them. You might explore habitat loss and the impacts on ecosystems caused by the extraction of natural resources, including mining, deforestation, drilling and fishing. So these two areas, there's a huge amount that can come into them about sustainability. Also, in terms of embedding sustainability through geography, reading is another really great way, both using fiction and non-fiction text. There are lots of amazing books out there through fiction which bring these ideas in, but also reading magazines, children's news articles, and using a variety of books with the geography sustainability theme can be a great way to introduce more learning about sustainability into the classroom. Twinkl Originals, if you've not come across them before, there are a lovely range of books, and the Twinkl Originals team has a really wide range of ebooks linking to sustainability. And when you get your copy of these slides, if you click that link, you'll get to one of their blogs which shares some of their sustainable choices that you could use in your lessons. The picture here is of one of their most recent books, which is called The Chocolate Choice, and that is a Key Stage 2 book that's aimed at introducing fair trade and production and looking at how that kind of is sustainable and looking at the impact on people as well. And it's done from a really nice angle. We've also got The Happy Times here, which is a really lovely magazine produced by Kat's team as part of the Eco Adventurers scheme, and that for each unit, and that really focuses so much on the positive news and the positive angle, and it really helps to reduce that eco anxiety too.
Thanks, Louise. So as mentioned previously, it's really useful to be able to involve children in real sort of life data at their school setting. So this could be making use of estates data, for example, and we can connect those whole school actions to classroom teaching and school-wide operational actions. So that could be outlined in the action plan, but then the actual data could be used to integrate sustainability across the key stages, subjects and school behaviours. So using real data actually makes lessons more practical and relevant and helps to boost that understanding and responsibility by putting those global issues into a local context. So this will obviously depending on your setting and the data that you collect, but it can be used and integrated across. A great tool for this, if you've not come across it before, is Eco Schools, which are part of Keep Britain Tidy. They have a free tool called Count Your Carbon. So this is a tool which enables you to calculate your settings carbon footprint. And they analyse data from key areas such as the energy provided to your school setting, transport, so how are people commuting to school, so that includes staff and children, food and purchases, and there's sort of subcategories within those. So there's a series of questions that the sustainability lead typically would answer, but they might need input from the school business manager as well. And then ultimately a calculation is put out and you get your school's carbon footprint. Now that's really useful because that could be used as a benchmark on how that carbon footprint figure can be improved the next year on. So what actions could the school take involving the children on how they can reduce that figure or figures in those sort of key topic areas. Now, mapping green space to track biodiversity can also be integrated into geography and science. So this links really nicely to fieldwork inquiries and could lead to taking action. So Louise mentioned previously about mapping habitat types and how certain actions could help the biodiversity of your site by planting seeds and increasing the amount of pollinators on your site as well. And then linking to waste management and recycling can also start initiatives to reduce waste in your setting. So just linking back to the Count Your Carbon tool, there is some data which enables you to collect surveys of staff and students in terms of method of transport to school. So that can help you work out the impact of this through emissions. And then that data then might be able to help you, well, I guess look at different options that are available for staff and students to get to school in a maybe a healthier or a greener way and look at those different commuting options. That links really nicely to using air quality data. So it might be able to enable you to draw attention to the impacts of emissions both on the people and the planet. So for example, this could result in planting trees and hedges to improve air quality and look at and see how emissions could be reduced around the school. So, for example, this could be a campaign to reduce idling cars in the vicinity. And it's also worth mentioning charities such as the Woodland Trust offer free trees for schools, and there's other charities that also offer those. Check your local council website because sometimes there are free schemes where there are tree saplings you can get yourself, and then you can use those to integrate with the children, get them involved in planting those trees to help to reduce that emissions in your local area. Now, I did sort of skirt over this previously. The National Education Nature Park is part of the DofE sustainability strategy. It's a really key part of that strategy, and it's led by the Natural History Museum and also the Royal Horticultural Society. And their ultimate aim is to get schools collecting site data, so real data, contributing to a huge bank of scientific research. And aim of this is to allow schools to use this data alongside the children to make decisions about improving the overall biodiversity of their sites and across the country. So this focuses on all school sites as part of one large nature park. Now, it's not just schools, it's ranging from EYFS to higher education. So if you imagine the green and the grey space outside of your school area that belongs to your setting, That in total for England is equivalent to the size of Birmingham, which is a vast area. So imagine the impact collectively we can have to be able to green up those spaces and make those spaces more biodiverse. This works really brilliantly as part of the geography lessons and curriculum. And the process is followed very similar to the fieldwork cycle. So it's focusing on that connection with local spaces, nature, and also driving that positive change and getting the children involved in it. Involved in National Education Nature Park, and also previously Louise and I have both mentioned quite frequently, is that behaviour change. So on a whole school level, that works best as a whole school practice. So this could be through assemblies or initiatives like cutting waste, saving energy and water, and also linking to the nature park. Back a slide is boosting that biodiversity, and the Count Carbon tool, which I mentioned previous, was promoting that sustainable travel or looking at different options for commuting. Our Eco Schools approved Eco Adventures and Planet Science schemes can also be used as evidence if you are thinking of applying for your Green Flag Award. So I think it's step 4 of the Eco Schools programme, which you can say that you've used the lessons, and that's the evidence that you need to partly apply for that award. So combining sustainability across subjects, it doesn't just have to be geography and science. There can be great ways of linking it across a range of subjects. So, you know, linking to art and design, using upcycled materials, but also learning about trade and economic activity lends it really nicely to a focus on the clothing and fast fashion industry in DT. So children could be inspired to use secondhand clothes to design and create new garments for perhaps an upcycle fashion show that they might want to present at assemblies. Now, on the right and sort of at the bottom here, there's some examples of resources. All these resource icons have links attached to them as well. So this is just showing some other examples across our products which have sustainability integrated into them. So history, we've got an environmental history concept video. Recently just launched is a new woodland art gallery for art, which is just at the moment for lower key stage 2, and this explores a perspective to create a woodland tunnel in a forest themed art session. We've got the Etta and Grandbot animation, which is for lower key stage 2 science, learning about the 3 R's. In English, this is a really recent pack that's been launched, an oracy discussion pack. There's also discussion packs for upper key stage 2 and lower key and key stage 1 as well, looking at conversations which would spark conversations about sustainability and climate change linked to oracy. And then at the bottom here, if you want a catchy tune, which is very, very catchy, there's a 5 R song about helping the children remember the 5 R's.
Thank you, Kat. So I'd love to know what's worked well for you in your classrooms to embed sustainability principles in geography. So if you've got anything you want to share, please do drop those into the chat. I think for us with Geo Wanderers, I think really making those links to the fashion supply chain and thinking about positive actions around fast fashion has been a really good way to embed that in our trade and economic activity unit. So I think that's been a really lovely example for us. So we're going to tell you a little bit about some ways that Twinkl can support you with sustainability. So we've got Innovate for Earth. These are cross-curricular packs that combine coding with sustainability, science and geography to develop research, problem solving and creativity skills for children in years 5 and 6. So through a hands-on and active approach, they aim to help children learn about climate change and sustainable practices, explore global environmental impacts, develop coding skills through interactive problem-solving challenges, and foster critical thinking and creativity in tackling real-world issues. So it gives a real-world application for field work, and then using lots of computing tools to help, and adding coding to really help support that. So it's a really lovely pack that you might want to check out. So
to support CPD for your own professional development. We've got tailored CPD for educators. For example, our climate change CPD pack covers 3 topics, so covering what is climate change, the evidence, impacts and adaptation, and then the future climate change and mitigation factors. For deeper learning and action, we've got an accredited carbon literacy training for schools course, which has been developed with the Carbon Literacy Project, and it's equipping you with practical strategies to embed climate conscious practices, but also looking at how you can perhaps reduce the carbon impacts in your setting. You also become carbon literate after attending that course as well. Now, Eco Adventures, I think Louise mentioned this previously, is our sustainability scheme. So this is a scheme which is curriculum linked across multiple disciplines in the English National Curriculum. We tackle eco-anxiety really sensitively, and it's really consciously made to empower learners to think critically and act responsibly. The climate science lessons, which are included in our Earth, Climate and Cycles unit, are accredited by the Royal Meteorological Society. Now, as I mentioned previously, it's really, really crucial to make sure we're delivering lessons about climate science as accurate as possible, not to spread any misinformation. So that's why we've gone down that route, to make sure they are approved by the Leading Learn Society. And then recently, hot off the press, literally on Friday last week, we've just released our new biodiversity unit. Now, this has been co-created with Chester Zoo. It's a free unit because it's in partnership with them, and it includes real conservation stories and hands-on activities to spark that curiosity and inspire action. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's really exciting, and please do check it out. We'd love to hear your feedback on it. And then this week and next week as well, we've just launched our 2-week sustainability campaign. So we have a core hub, which is where it says check it out here. That lists all the different products, including Eco Adventures and Geo Wonderers and many more, where we bring sustainability to life. And then there's multiple blogs for different key stages. You can explore the new Eco Adventures Biodiversity unit. And then finally, there is a really exciting giveaway where you could enter to possibly win a live workshop with a Chester Zoo expert. So please do have a look at that hub and see if anything interests you.
Thanks, Kat. I think it's worth mentioning as well that bear in mind that that campaign and the competition will be running for during that campaign. So if you are watching this video on catch up, do check that the competition is still running before entering it.
Thanks, Louise. Yeah.
No worries. So I'm going to just talk very quickly, and I'm going to whiz through this because I realise we're coming up to time. So sustainability in Geo Wonderers. So our geography team have worked really hard to weave sustainability through our units, making meaningful connections and building that progressive understanding. And soon we'll be releasing a coverage map to help you see where sustainability is covered across the Geo Wanderers curriculum scheme. But we've also approached it through the lens of ingenuity and hope, with a focus on solutions and positive actions people can take and what children can personally do to enact change. So some examples. So looking back at some of the examples we talked about earlier, where we've brought sustainability into fieldwork. So in around our locality, Key Stage 1 children think about how to improve their local environment. Some of the suggested inquiry questions are focused around sustainability, such as looking at whether the plants in our area encourage biodiversity, and it really focuses on that connection with their local environment as well. In Seaside, Key Stage 1 children plan an inquiry focused on litter, thinking about ways litter can be reduced in their local area or their local seaside. And then further up the school, in food distribution and climate, upper Key Stage 2 children learn about food miles and plan an inquiry around the sustainability of the food industry and the impact on climate change. And in Rivers and Coast, children explore the environmental impacts associated with water, such as erosion, flooding and pollution. And they plan an inquiry into one of those aspects and explore some of the solutions that have been designed to help with these issues. If we think about looking through places through a sustainable lens, so in mountains, which is again an upper Key Stage 2 unit, the place focus is a comparison of the Rockies region of North America with the Welsh region of Erie. And as part of this, children learn strategies used in each place to address the impact of tourists on those mountain areas. In Rivers and the Water Cycle, children are introduced to case studies of specific places, including Kenya, focusing on solutions that are being trialled. And this builds on looking at Kenya through a sustainability lens in the Key Stage 1 comparative unit. Carrying on with that, we've also got the Regional Study and European Comparison Unit, where we focus on Sicily, and we look at the impact of climate change on the area, exploring how this has led to changing weather conditions, natural disasters, and how it's impacted people who live there. And then in terms of in human geography, we've got the Distribution of Natural Resources unit, where children learn about the challenges we face when using natural resources, including renewable and non-renewable resources, biodiversity loss, deforestation, and resource depletion. And in Trade and Economic Activity, which is coming in July, children will learn about fast fashion and the human environmental impacts of this, and they consider actions for positive behaviour change as part of that too. In terms of linking it to the study of physical features, so we've already talked about how in mountains we talk about the impact of tourism on the mountain area of Erie and the Rockies. In volcanoes and earthquakes, children learn about some of the positive environmental impacts of volcanoes, such as geothermal energy and fertile soil. In terms of understanding inequalities, we've got the Rivers and the Water Cycle unit, where children learn about the inequalities in water access across the world, and they learn about some of the reasons for this, the consequences, and possible solutions to this environmental issue. And then in Distribution of Natural Resources, children learn about how resources are distributed around the world and the inequalities of access, and consider the difference this can make to these countries. We've also integrated green careers throughout Geo Wonderers. So in many of our units, there are opportunities for green careers identified, and this develops a strong foundation of environmental awareness, helps shape a generation for the sustainable future, as we've spoken about, and shows young people the growing demand for green skills and green careers. These are optional slides that can be revealed by using the green careers button. So finally, I'm just going to finish off with some of the geography team's favourite sustainability in geography activities. So Jane is an experienced teacher and Twinkl geography content writer, and she finds fieldwork one of her favourites. So one of her favourite ways of weaving sustainability into geography is through fieldwork, for example, by visiting a local river, tourist attraction or high street and seeing the impact of human action in familiar locations. They are then able to consider how they can be the innovator of change in their local area. That sounds really powerful, doesn't it? That connection to the local area and being able to really innovate change in an area that's important to them. And then Mike is an experienced teacher and tutor and subject leader, and is Twinkl geography team leader. And he taught at a primary school in a very popular tourist destination in Cornwall. And the children were very aware of the number of tourists visiting and the impact of tourism on the village. One sustainability activity we did was to create a questionnaire and talk to locals and tourists to explore the effects of tourism. We then fed back our findings and solutions to the parish council. This allowed the children to feel that their voices were heard and they were actually part of something bigger than a lesson in the classroom. And I love that idea of making them feel like they're part of something bigger, but without that responsibility being on them. Nicola is an experienced teacher, subject leader and Twinkl geography content writer and editor. And she found one of the most valuable sustainability activities she did was when she was an environment lead and they were applying for the Green Flag Award. And the eco team asked the whole school to put energy saving measures in place, such as remembering to turn lights and computers off. And the children used data from their energy meter readings to monitor the impact before and after. They presented the data in the form of line graphs, analysed what it showed and shared their findings with the whole school. Some classes were inspired to write persuasive leaflets and posters detailing those energy saving ideas. And then finally from me, my favourite one was focusing on solutions. So one of my favourite activities with sustainability is to focus on solutions and the difference children can make, whether that's planting flowers to encourage wildlife or designing systems to monitor energy usage. I think it's so important to focus on the action they can take and ensure that they really feel that their contribution matters.